Greetings, fellow comrades and fellow primates. Welcome to the Big Flush. Get ready to hold your nose. There's a lot of political bullshit to deal with today. John, how are you doing?
I am doing exceptionally well, except for all the bullshit in the politics in the air. I think when I was driving over here, I smelled something very foul in the atmosphere.
Was it urine, feces, or human stool? What political party did it come from?
Well, today I think it's coming from our friends at the Democratic Party, as they've lost their damn mind. Not that they haven't already lost their damn mind, like 2 years ago in January when the guy with the orange hair won the election. But, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's just, I had different news stations on, and you know it's bad when you're listening to a rock and roll station, and when they do their, like, top-of-the-hour news, then they're talking politics on rock and roll, because, you know, rock and roll and politics don't mix unless it's like Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's leftist politics.
Or U2 or somebody like that. But, yeah it's all leftist
Starvation
politics.
needs to be cured from the world.
Who is the conservative rock star? Is there a conservative rock star?
Unfortunately, he's a douchebag called Ted Nugent.
Oh,
of the Amboy
Uncle
Dukes.
Ted. I like Uncle Ted.
What?
Oh,
He's
yeah. Oh, no, I like Uncle Ted. Uncle Ted's a great guy.
How do you like him?
I've hung out with him a couple times.
You've hung out with everybody, man.
Yes, I have.
Okay, tell me about your experience.
No, it was just, you know, at a couple different functions. Backstage one time after a show he did, I was back there and just not talking politics, just very nice guy, very accommodating to his fans, and, you know, just a good, solid Michigander. I mean, his views, I mean, some people, especially on the far left, would say that his views are like crazy, radical, and extreme, but they're not. It's just his delivery is pretty radical and extreme.
Exactly. That's what I don't like about him.
Yeah, but his message, I mean, he's no different than anybody else, I think, with that side of the aisle's viewpoint. I mean, he's a strong constitutionalist, libertarian. He's big on gun rights, he's big on hunting, and he's big on the government's corrupt and they can all fuck off, basically. But he doesn't say it nice like everybody else.
Well, one of the things, I'll give you an example. Hunting and conservationism, I get it. As long as the people killing when the animal gets killed, it's put to use the way Native Americans did. You respect the animal. You don't go after a female animal that has young. No killing Bambi's mother. And to be honest with you, my favorite hunters, and I have a hunter in my family, my uncle Frank Jacobson. Maybe he's listening right now. But he also hunted with bow and arrow. Mm-hmm. Not exclusively, but it levels the playing field to make it a sport and make it... it's hard for me to explain. There's a certain way that a hunter has to be, a certain code of conduct. Mm-hmm. Nugent bragged on television about how he was shooting cattle from a helicopter, and was saying, yeah, well, what are you going to do about it? And by the way, and this is in Obama's first term as president, if Obama gets reelected, I'll either be dead or in jail. And I liked when Bill Maher said, or as I call it, a win-win. Personally, he's not. I don't like Ted Nugent. And it's crazy for me how he is now compared to how he was when he was in the Amboy Dukes. I mean, he wrote the song "Journey to the Center of the Mind," which is all about learning to understand yourself through psychedelic drugs and so on. Mm-hmm. But anyway, another tangent here at the Big Flush. Sometimes we need a big flush for the big flush.
Sometimes we do.
You know, but so right now we've got some total Orwellian Ministry of Truth shit going on. Mm-hmm. We had a long meeting before we actually did this podcast to wrap our heads around what's going on. Because, of course, if Trump was doing something bad with Ukraine, then, you know, we would hold him accountable. We're not Trump supporters on this show. But if there is a system that is constantly spying on and trying to sabotage somebody who is the monkey wrench in the turbine of a system that has been duping us for a long time, then they need to be held accountable for that. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We'd love to hear everyone's opinions to help us all understand this more thoroughly. So, John, what happened?
Well, a whole bunch of bullshit happened, I think, in my humble opinion. So basically, there was a transcript of a phone call that the President of the United States had with the leader of the Ukraine. And the transcript basically says something along the lines of that, we're about to sell you these missile systems. I know that you want them, and we're about to sell them to you, but we'd like you to do us a favor, and that is to look into this ongoing scandal, with Joe Biden and his son. For those of you that, don't know what's going on, or for those of you that are just all spun up because you've been watching the news, back when Obama was when Obama was the president and Biden was the vice president, Biden led all the U.S. diplomatic efforts and go-betweens and foreign policy directly with the Ukraine. He was the guy in the Ukraine. And magically, lo and behold, his son, who has no background whatsoever in energy and the oil business or anything, was given this kick-ass job on the board of this very large, prominent Ukrainian oil company. So, when you have no experience, you're from America, you don't have any perspective on the Ukraine, you don't live there or anything, but your father is the political, liaison and political ambassador, basically, handling all the United States business with the Ukraine, which, in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years has been very, very volatile because, the Ukraine's, constant fight with Russia. Mm-hmm. So the Ukraine is kind of in the middle between the Ukraine Ukraine is in the middle between the U.S. and Russia.
Right.
The Americans want to back the Ukraine, send them money, help them with their oil drilling, with their military, and Russia freaks out about that because A, it's right on their border, and second of all, because a lot of people don't know, most of Russia's factories that make tanks and weapons and that whole infrastructure, they're all in Ukraine. So Russia has a very, very big, powerful interest in what goes on in the Ukraine. So Joe Biden, is the American diplomat, vice president, representing the country, and his son gets appointed to this board that he's got no qualifications for whatsoever and gets this kick-ass job, and I don't even know if there's any record of him, going there to work every day or once a month or what it is. So at the very, very least, it's a complete conflict of interest. I mean, people do it every day. Your father owns a company, your neighbor kid needs a job, dads are best friends, the kid gets a job. So it's always been who you know, not what you know necessarily. But when you get to the level of, the highest levels in politics, there's got to be, more, transparency. Politicians have to be beyond reproach. So when you have this buddy-buddy relationship where your kid has a job like that given to them, and the oil and everything in that part of the world, it's all government controlled. It's not like these are private companies. This is the government of the Ukraine.
Well, it's not communist.
Well, it's not communist. They're fighting communism, but it could fall that way. But it's definitely not an open democracy like America is.
But they have a free market in Ukraine, just to be clear.
Yeah,
it's it's not a state control where all the businesses have been appropriated by the state the way it was before 1989.
No.
But I'm sure that there are elements of corruption there, maybe a little bit more so than in the United States and Canada, but we have it too, make no mistake.
Absolutely.
And the company, just to be specific, it was called Burisma Holdings, which is a Ukrainian gas-producing giant, and Hunter was on the board of directors for that company. And the whole point, the irony of all this is they're accusing Trump, essentially, to get it started, there was a whistleblower, a nameless, faceless whistleblower, which, it's okay that it's nameless and faceless because we don't want that person to be targeted, and his anonymity is attributed to the fact that nobody wants to see the guy or person, if it's a woman, get hurt. So they've published the whistleblower complaint regarding President Trump and the Ukraine, and you can look that up on CNN and print it out. I have it right in front of me. It would take like 5 hours for me to read it all to you, and I wouldn't want to bore you with the nuance. Read it, get up to snuff with what we're talking about. In the meantime, we'll give you the feedback that we've recorded. So essentially, Trump is being accused of collusion once again. This isn't the first time it's happened. The Mueller thing didn't work out. All of these attempts at having him impeached have failed, but that does not stop the barrage.
No, not at all.
Of one thing after the next. So you, listening to this right now, have to wrap your head around this and ask yourself if this is something you can swallow, if you can really swallow the idea that this is collusion, and I'm going to tell you what that is. Trump is on the phone with President Zelensky, congratulating him on his, just like you said, John, congratulating him on his victory. Zelensky brings up the need for Javelin missiles. I thought he actually meant javelins when I read it. That's how much I know about military. Mm-hmm. And Trump, his insinuation, and you know business people like I do, there's a certain way of speaking that's a little bit insidious. He said, find out what's going on with Hunter Biden. Mm-hmm. You know, what was going on with that? Mm-hmm. Did Biden abuse his power by positioning his son in a position of authority like that?
Yeah.
So first of all, I think Biden's the one who should have been in trouble for collusion.
Absolutely.
Sweetheart deals with other countries. Nobody's talking about that. They're just saying, what they're saying now is that Trump is the colluder and the traitor for trying to get information about his political opponent, probably not for noble reasons. Again, we don't like Trump. We know that what he was doing. He was trying to get dirt on his opponent. And him just asking about that and getting information on that, I don't think is tantamount to treason, collusion, or grounds for impeachment.
No, not at all. I mean, people forget, whether you hate Trump or you despise him, and that's all that's on your mind 24 hours a day, that he just needs to be destroyed. I mean, if you come from that side of the world, I mean, so be it. But what you do have to accept, whether you want to or not, is that he is the President of the United States. And the President of the United States is the commander-in-chief. He's the head of the government. He's the boss. He's the one that has the full power to negotiate and talk to foreign leaders in foreign nations. And the thing is that if Trump would have called this guy or had a private meeting with this guy and said, hey, you know what, Biden's gaining strength, I want to win re-election. It's beneficial for you and your country if I win because I'm friendly to you, plus we have this little private friendship agreement going on. I tell you what, have your guys, in the computer world, drum up some bullshit. Have your guys, make up some stories, put it out on the dark web, let it get discovered that way, then provide these witnesses that'll say this and this. And basically, let's make up a story that makes my opponent, Biden, look bad, and that'll help me in the election because it'll discredit him. Now, if Trump would have done something like that, then I would be 100% in agreement with the people that have been screaming the past few days over this issue. But the fact of the matter is and this is the one thing that pisses me off about the Democrats and the far left, but, at times it pisses me off about the right. It's like, if you totally bypass the fact, because this isn't the first time this has come up. This has come up before with Biden, and when the Democrats were in power, they just sweep it under the rug. But if the other side does it, you got to nail them to the cross like Jesus Christ himself. But if our side does it because you're on our team, we'll just make it go away. We'll use our friends in the media, in the intelligence community, and we'll just make it go away because you're our good team member. But so they told, it's just like with the Hillary Clinton server thing. None of the Democrats would even acknowledge the fact that she committed this blatantly obvious crime that, even if they can't put her in jail, she should have lost her position as Secretary of State because of, how she used the Clinton, foundation, how she, sold Ukrainian reserves in America to the Russians. I mean, so there was way more evidence of Clinton not only colluding with the Democratic Party to get rid of Bernie, but also colluding with the Russians for personal gain long before Trump was elected president, and that was never even acknowledged. So the thing here is that if Trump had done the scenario I just said, where he made all this stuff up or he colluded with the Ukraine underworld to create a falsehood,
Right.
then I would agree. But the fact of the matter is, Biden actually did this. Biden had this cozy relationship with the Ukraine.
Right.
And basically it's like, hey, give my kid a job, and they give him a freaking prestigious job. That would be like you or me, Zach. All of a sudden we're on the board of directors of General Electric.
Right.
How the hell are you or I going to explain that to my friends, my family? How'd you get that job, John? Oh, well.
Because we're brilliant. We're awesome.
No, they'd be like, would you blow the guy or what? I mean, please, folks, put your politics aside. I'm talking to you Democrats right at the moment because you're the ones mostly fired up about this. Put your politics aside. You have to admit that this is a conflict of interest. Because now that, they've got his son over there working in this cush thing, it's like, okay, it's like we kind of got the Ukraine by the balls, right? But at the same time, they kind of got America by the balls because at any time they could be like, oh, Joe, oh, you don't want to give us these missiles? You're going back on your deal? Oh, you're playing cozy with the Russians or somebody, hostile to us? Guess what? We're going to tell the world about your son working here, and we're going to embarrass you.
Right, and that would have nothing to do with Trump. That's their own initiative.
Absolutely not. So Trump, in his capacity as president, no matter what his motivation is, his motivation could be 100%, I want to help my campaign. Personally, I don't think he's scared of Biden because Biden's numbers are starting to drop off, and Elizabeth Warren, of all people,
He's not scared of any of
have
them.
been gained. No, he's not. So, but even if it was, for, this will help my campaign or whatever, it's still a truthful thing. As the president, you are allowed to call for an investigation into anything. And the way he's calling out Biden, it's no different than in the Democratic debates when Tulsi Gabbard called out Kamala Harris, and all the Democrats went crazy because she really hit home. I mean, made Kamala Harris look really, really bad. And what did she do? She didn't make anything up. She didn't slander Kamala Harris. All she did was bring up her actual record that is verifiable of how she dealt with her own African-American people when she was a prosecutor, and the way that she put people in prison for minor crimes and just had very little sympathy for anybody, no matter what. She brought that up poignantly, and she embarrassed the shit out of her. So it's like the same kind of thing. I mean, if Tulsi Gabbard had made the whole thing up, then okay, but it's the truth.
Right.
And so they're trying to shoot the messenger, and they're totally ignoring the message. And this has become, daily operating procedure for our government. And folks, it's got to stop. Put your political party affiliation aside for a minute and just look. Our government's like a kangaroo court right now. It's like a big-time wrestling match going on.
Oh, it's ridiculous how it's become hyperbolized and sensationalized in the media. Politics is no longer politics. It's more akin to this, the 2020 elections, like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Even the way they advertise it, it's close-ups, lighting, rock and roll music, and
Everything.
here on this side you have Donald
Oh, my
Trump, and
God.
on that side you have Kamala Harris. Do you know what her credentials are? And blah, blah, blah. It's like, holy shit, what's happening to this guy?
And I feel like the actual senators and Congress people, not all of them, but a good majority of them, especially the ones who have been in office for years, like, Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, or on the Republican side.
Karl Rove.
Yeah, those guys. I mean, so I was watching Nancy Pelosi read her statement, about the fact that she's initiating
The impeachment process.
The impeachment process. We're doing an impeachment investigation to see if there's enough evidence to actually start a real impeachment.
Yeah.
And when she was standing at the podium, she's obviously reading a teleprompter. And she was just reading the charges, and she was stumbling on words like, you obviously didn't write this. Somebody else wrote it for you. And there's not even, like, you're focused and concentrating so hard on reading the teleprompter and getting it right that you're oblivious to how, like, I don't want to say incompetent, but it was almost sad, like you're a beginning stage Alzheimer's patient or something that's doing your best, and she just looked, I mean, these people don't even do her makeup good. She just looked like a living corpse.
Crypt keeper.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not even trying to be mean to the lady.
No, she actually looks like the crypt keeper.
Yeah.
Tales from the crypt keeper.
And I do wonder about her health, because I was watching also, as I was doing some research for this, I was watching some older videos of her, and she's got a strong voice, and she's pretty good as far as like diction and being, fairly well spoken.
Right.
But now, when she was just reading that, she looked tired. She looked beat down, like, and the thing that I worry about, again, is that these people really aren't in charge. Like, there's a whole, infrastructure of intelligence people, of military people, of deep state people, like the interns and the pages that are around them, that are the ones that usually write all of the bills and everything, lobbyists that have gotten jobs inside of actual Congress people's like offices and stuff to help write legislation. And it's almost like she looks like beaten down, like she tried to fight this, because I don't think she's been comfortable about impeachment, because she's smart enough to know that historically impeachment is a bad thing. When they impeached Clinton, he got more popularity out of that impeachment because they didn't have him dead to nuts on anything other than lying basically about getting a blowjob in the Oval Office, is what it boiled down to. I mean, people don't give a shit about that, but the fact that you're going to put the President of the United States, where, again, whether you like him or you hate him, symbolically he is the leader of the country. So if you're going to put him up to all this scrutiny when you forget that almost half of all voters that voted in the last presidential election did vote for him and do support him.
Yeah.
So he's got a huge base. You're just invigorating his base to go out and get their family members to go vote, and he'll win by a bigger landslide.
Right.
And I think Nancy Pelosi is wise enough to know this, and I think that's why she's been fighting this whole impeachment thing.
Fighting against impeachment?
Yeah, fighting against leading an impeachment, because you remember earlier this year when the four ladies, AOC, the squad, when they were like screaming every day, my congressman from Michigan, Rashida Tlaib, every day.
She's among them, yeah.
Oh my God! And what did Pelosi do? She stood firm, and she's like, "We're not doing this."
Right.
Even Schumer, we're not doing this. Because they know. You can't, this is not something that you can just throw around. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just, okay, the other side, and whatever, in 4 years or 2 years from now, say a Democrat gets elected. The Republicans can't just be like from day one, oh, we're going to impeach him because we lost.
Right. They were a little bit like that against Obama under with the Tea Party.
Yeah, a little bit.
And Rush Limbaugh did say the day after Obama's election, no matter what this president does, I will never support it, even if it's in my interest. And then people called him a racist for that. Like, why else would you hate somebody so much, even if they did something good for you? I don't know if he's a racist or if that's smearing, but yeah, it's happened before. Obama had a lot of shit to deal with, too, a lot of hate. And there was a lot of hateful people outside the White House every day.
That's true.
But now it's, not to cut you off, John, but now it seems the opposite, because I remember under the Obama administration, for shits and giggles, I would watch on YouTube, like, videos of crazy Tea Party people,
Yeah.
and how irrational and hysterical they were. Now I'm watching, SJW videos for the same type of amusement. Just looking at hysterical people and how hysterical human beings can get.
Oh, yeah.
Under certain circumstances.
Oh yeah, they're crazy. And again, I'm not trying to be a defense mechanism or anything for the Republican Party.
No.
I mean, both parties are equally as corrupt and put on an equally brilliant, entertaining show for the, lemmings of the American public that consumes the 24-hour shock clickbait news cycle.
Right.
I used to have a science teacher in 5th or 6th grade. He had this saying he'd always say when kids would, ask dumb questions, or when they weren't paying attention, or when they were couldn't figure something out. He'd just be like, kids, when all else fails, think. Use that thing between your ears. And people don't do that. They just hear news, headlines that come across are all sensationalized. And the news on all sides, left and right, they have morphed. That's the word I'm looking for. They have morphed.
Freudian slip there.
Well, hey, I am a red hot blooded Italian guy. I'm not gonna lie, but they've morphed into this almost like a shovel system where they're shoveling big vats of spaghetti into people's faces, because they see something and they're told what to think. They're reinforced by 3 or 4 or a panel of 6 people all saying the same thing. And then psychologically you're like, well, shit, these are 6 people on television. They can't, and they're supposedly coming from different backgrounds and industries, and
right.
They can't all be lying to us, right? And then they're all given the same message, and then you have the counter story, and then you have the confidential unnamed source,
right? Like in this case,
yeah, it's a real person, and people just buy into it, and while they're all caught up in the frenzy,
yeah,
they don't take 5 seconds to step back and go, okay, what did these people just tell me? What are they trying to propose? What are they trying to put down my throat? Okay, does it sound reasonable? When I really think about it, I mean, would Trump really release a transcript that was going to be damning to him? He's the president of the United States. They finally released a transcript. Why would they unclassify something if they're trying to hide something? And the other thing, I guess it's a good time to bring it up now, is the thing that incesses me more than anything else is the fact that no one is asking or saying, hey, wait a minute. You're saying that this came from a inside source, from the CIA or whatever. Why in the fuck is the CIA actively spying on or eavesdropping on or intercepting anything that the president does? If the president has a confidential conversation with a foreign leader, why the fuck is the CIA intercepting that? And then, more importantly, leaking that? Because that could harm U.S. relationship with the Ukraine or whoever, because if the president of Ukraine's got to be thinking to himself, well, I just talked to Trump, and his one advisor, are they throwing me under the bus? Are they trying to make me look bad?
Right.
Next thing you know, the foreign country thinks that we're complicit in the scandal. And then there's mistrust, and then nobody trusts the other side because the minute you say something, it's getting leaked. And last time I checked, a CIA operative or agent that's leaking classified information, that's a crime. It's a crime. So that should bother people, that we still have, and Trump, said this from day one, that they're investigating me. They really are. And there was even a CNN pundit, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's no friend of Trump. He's always against Trump, and he had a guy on
because he's on CNN.
Absolutely,
there's no other voice other than anti-Trump on CNN.
No, there's not. But he had a guest on that was talking about this, and was talking about the person on the inside and who might it be and whatever. And even the CNN person was like, wait a minute. Why is the CIA actively spying on the President of the United States? That's not their job. It's not their role. And guess what, folks? The boss of this country, the country, you look at it like a business. Look at like the president is the boss, okay? The Congress and the Senate, they're the bosses. These are the branches of government. They are the bosses. The intelligence community, the CIA, the FBI, which is basically just the federal government police agency, these are like agencies. These people work for the president. They work for the country and them. They're not the boss. So what the hell are like employees doing, eavesdropping and spying on the boss? If I was Trump, heads would roll. I would go to the CIA, I'd fire everybody. I'd fire the top 30 people. I'd be like, you know what? This is fucking ridiculous. You're all fired. That's what I would do.
That's another, that can go down a dangerous road too, though. You know, just liquidating all of the people who don't work for. I'll tell you, the first time that I heard about it, that the FBI was investigating, Comey was investigating Trump, I basically was like, well, that's probably a good thing because that means we live in a more transparent time. But then as all of these different impeachment attempts, one after the next, started happening. Actually, it started with Pussy. Is it Pussygate? Grab him by the pussy.
I guess you call.
The first. I thought he was done. I never thought he'd be president
Really?
after I heard that.
Oh, no.
But he did, and now I think it's a symbol to the Democrats. Like, what the fuck are you going to do now? Half the country doesn't give a shit that he grabs.
Well,
young models who.
But is there really... See, again, you have one section of America, people, especially ones that are predisposed to hate Trump because he's Trump and because he's a Republican and he's not a progressive far-left liberal. That there's already this...
I think he is a liberal. I don't think he's I wouldn't use progressive or left. But he's basically a liberal.
He is. So it's even more, like, unsensical. But some people were shocked by that. Other people were like... Well, it's Trump. You've seen Trump on TV. He's around the Miss America pageant for decades. Right. He's kind of an ogre. I mean, his personality. The fact that he would actually say something like that off the cuff when he doesn't know he's being recorded and, man to man with another guy, they're talking like girl talk, Go to a locker room, folks. Go to a bar with a bunch of guys. This is how guys talk to one another. I'm sorry. They do. Now, maybe they're not supposed to talk to that way once they get to work and they're in the office in an official capacity. But Trump wasn't in politics at the time. He was just a private citizen, a rich guy. Go to the private club. There's a very prestigious private club here in Detroit that I've been to several times. Private club. All the biggest businessmen. Sometimes there's, people in government that are there for different events, and they have a real nice smoking cigar bar at the top level. You can see the whole city of Detroit. And you go in that bar, and you hang out there for 10 minutes, and you overhear the conversations of the powerful men that are there, and they make Trump's grab him by the pussy comment sound like PG or G-rated stuff.
Right.
And this is how powerful men talk.
But we've also talked about on this podcast before how what Trump said is minuscule and very mediocre compared to what you hear in rap music.
Oh, of course.
And other things like that nobody complains about.
No, you listen to the latest rap songs, Gucci Mane, Post Malone. You listen to... what's that crazy girl I hate?
Cardi B.
Cardi B.
I don't hate her.
Well, I don't hate her. I mean, she's funny. But what's not funny about that to me is like if grown-ass people, 21, 18, 19, 21, are listening to that and saying those foul-mouthed words as they repeat her lyrics and songs, I'm fine with that. They're adults.
But then don't go bitch about Trump and grabbing pussy.
Exactly.
I have nothing against any of those people, to be clear.
Yeah.
A lot of them are very smart business people in their own right.
But don't let your, 8 and 9-year-old kids listen to her music and repeat those words at that age. And that's where it's a problem. But, you know, that's way more foul than that one comment that was said, 10, 12, 15 years ago?
Which was intended to be private and discreet, and then we're talking about music where people are making millions of dollars using way worse vocabulary than that, and a lot of them are Democrats.
Sure they are.
You know,
and then there's the convenience factor, like this report that they released that started all this firestorm about, you know, the whole thing here with Trump and Biden and the Ukraine. They've had this supposed information since like
July 25th.
Yeah, since July.
The phone call was on July 25th.
Okay, so they've had it since day one in July.
Yeah.
If it was so damning and it was so treasonous, and the evidence is the actual document, the transcript, which it's either black or white, it's on the transcript or it's not. If you have all this information, why isn't there a press conference the following morning saying, my God, look at what the president just did or is doing? Why hold it for a couple months? Are they trying to...
because they only did it yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's going on to today at Capitol Hill.
So they release it when it's most politically damning and beneficial, you know, for, you know, what their motives are, which is not, you know, protecting the nation. You know, if they cared about protecting the nation, they would have been protecting the nation from Joe Biden getting his son's sweetheart jobs and colluding with the Ukraine, you know, with this special personal bond and relationship that's a total conflict of interest to the American people.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how people, because there will be people who totally and unquestionably swallow this.
Sure they will.
But how they articulate their reason for doing so will be interesting to listen to in the coming days. Because it's actually just a statement. All Donald Trump did on the phone call was say, hey, we really, I'll help you out with those Javelin missiles. But really, it would be great to know if you could give me a little information on what was going on with Joe Biden. Why was his son there?
Yeah.
That's a totally...
Well, yeah.
It's not tantamount to treason.
No, it's not.
In the same way, whereas I think it is almost tantamount to treason when Biden is exploiting his authority, abusing his power, which is a word frequently used on CNN today with application to Trump.
Yeah.
Biden's the one who abused power by getting his son a gig there.
Absolutely.
And a big gig on the board of directors at Burisma Holdings.
Yeah. Again, it would be you or me getting pointed to the board of like Lockheed Martin or Boeing or Nestle or something like that. I mean,
and like our executive position there is totally in absentia. Like we're out golfing and
yeah, like we never go to a meeting. It's just a placeholder. Basically, we get a check. So basically, what's going on is Biden's got his son there. Biden gets a check. It's just like a bribe, folks. That's what it is. It's a frickin' bribe.
It's crazy how people are not averting their rage in the right direction.
Well, again, it's the whole political system in America has been basically dumbed down to like a boxing match or a football game where there's two sides, even though we should have a constitutional republic with all sides and independent candidates. It's been skillfully molded into two sides. So that's like Michigan. I live in Michigan, University of Michigan, big college town, big college football team. Our biggest rival is Ohio State. So it's basically like a big football rivalry. If you're a Michigan fan, you can't say anything good about Ohio State. Ohio State is the enemy. The star quarterback's the enemy. The coach is the enemy. You know, people start fights in the stands during the games. It's like it's the enemy, and there's no like. It's just the way it is. There's no debate about that.
Right.
And they've dumbed down politics to the same thing. Where if you've chosen to be on the right side and a Republican, conservative, whatever label you want to give it, that's your team. And no matter what anyone does on your team that's bad or wrong, you got to cover for them. And you got to, whatever it takes. And then if you're on the Democrat side, the left side, liberal, progressive, however you want to label yourself there, same thing. You know, point out what the other side does wrong, but if your side does the same thing, we got to cover for our people, because it's like having a fantasy football team. If you got a quarterback that gets you 32 points every week, you don't want to lose that player. That's like a key player. You need that player.
Right.
In politics, those key players are people that have power and influence around the world and are also able to raise a lot of money. So if you can do one or both of those things, your party will cover for you no matter what you do, unless it's to the point of something like a Jeffrey Epstein, or the point where the news media like actually has pictures of you doing something super inappropriate.
But then they won't say anything about it.
No, but
they're not gonna condemn. They just will be silent.
Yeah, God forbid they won't condemn. They'll just be like, oh, well, it's disappointing. Oh, well, I don't really want to comment on that. Instead of saying, no, you sick fuck. You know, I worked with him for 10 years, but I didn't know he was fondling 10-year-old boys. He's a sick fuck, and I'm glad he's gone. And anybody else that does it, Republican or Democrat, should be gone too. But they never do that. So the whole thing is a show, folks. It's one big scam. And I don't know. I've got my... I'm like on the fence of whether or not Trump is actually legitimate or he's all part of the big plan too. Because, you know, I'm the conspiracy guy on this show.
Well, I've even thought about it many times too, John. Like maybe Joy Behar, Anderson Cooper, Cuomo, what's the other, Don Lemon. Maybe all of those people who seem to be seethingly anti-Trump are actually part of the conspiracy. Remember 1984, it was actually the party that invented the rebellion against the party. There was no rebellion.
Right.
It just got people a little bit excited, and they were able to point out who was potentially a saboteur. But anyway, don't let me talk about 1984.
No, but it's
I'll
true,
never
though.
shut
I mean, folks, do your homework. You can go on to this thing called Google. Look it up. And if Google is filtering results, go to like startpage.com, which is a protected, you know, search engine that doesn't get, you know, played with at all. So Joy Behar and Donald Trump used to go to dinner together. I mean, they're New Yorkers.
Yeah.
Same thing. Donald Trump used to be so close with the Clintons. Their kids were in each other's weddings.
Yeah.
So now they're not friends anymore? Come on. Come on. It's bullshit, guys. They're all playing a role. And you and I and the American public and the Canadian public and the world public, it's like, it's class. It's not Republican or Democrat, left or right. It's haves and have-lesses.
Right. And so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today also, with regard to power, the election, who's malicious and who's genuine. So Donald Trump, don't like the guy, probably wouldn't want to have dinner with him or lunch. But he's functional. You know, he works for the country. Actually, technically, he works for the world economy to a large extent. And it's your military that defends my country. We have a great military in Canada, just the population isn't large enough to sustain ourselves without America. We're like really tight with you guys. Now, we have the same problems here. Here's what I thought about immediately. Donald Trump doesn't have as strong enough a motive to abuse presidential power in the way that everybody else does on the political stage, left and right. Why? Because he's so rich and he had such a good life before being president, and so much power through his wealth.
Yeah.
That he's not hungry for power the way that other career politicians are.
No.
So he's the only candidate right now for whom I can say power is a means and not an end.
Absolutely. I mean,
everybody else becoming president is the end result. Like, they claimed power and now they have what they want and they can serve themselves. They can give their fuck up sons big executive jobs in other countries because of their buddy with whoever.
Yeah.
And yeah, for Joe Biden, it's very clear. It's strange that that's not the focus of the conversation. Is holy shit, we just found this out about Joe Biden and his son, and how for Joe Biden, power is not a means but an end.
Come on, Joe Biden is like Luke Skywalker. He's fighting the evil empire. I mean, and he's such a nice man. He's like your lovable Uncle Joe, your Grandpa Joe, and I mean, he's a good Democrat. He's it's
Big
like,
brother.
Yeah, give me a fucking break, man. Mm-hmm. Wake the fuck up, people, please. You're freaking making my skin itch, man.
Right.
People just are,
So, yeah, I mean, it's going to really be interesting to see what happens in the coming days with, A, what is said by the people in power, particularly Biden, and also I'm really interested to see people's reaction to this.
Well, I think that, people on the left that hate Donald Trump, the Donald Trump, hating community, they're going to jump on this just like they've jumped on every bandwagon, and they're not going to let go of it and let it out of their clutches until the very last drop of blood or water is squeezed out and there's no more, just like they did with the Russia investigation. Going to do the same thing. And I guarantee you, the minute that this scandal goes away, I'm sure the operatives that are trying to get rid of Trump already have the next 2 or 3 or 4 planned and lined up. These people are long-term thinkers. They're strategic planners. These things just don't happen by accidents, folks. They just don't. So I think they're invigorating Trump supporters. So Trump supporters are going to be much more, fired up to not only go vote for him again, but to get friends and family fired up too. And there is also a class of Americans, I think, and I know you guys have your own like fireworks in Canadian politics with Trudeau and all that, but there's a class of Americans, again, that are in the middle, right? They're not far left or left, they're not far right, they're just normal folks, and they happen to be the majority. And I think most people, and I know I am, are just tired of the bullshit every day, of the constant attacks. And here's the thing. You're going to lose, Democrats, because you think this attack strategy is the only thing that will like get you into office. But it's not. None of your candidates are like coming up with solutions. They're not proposing things to make the nation better. They're not addressing issues.
They're not saying anything that isn't agonizingly predictable.
No, it's canned statements, and that's why somebody like Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang or even Marianne Williamson, when the 3 Democrats that kind of stood out when the whole, kickoff started, is because out of the whole 20-some that were running, or however many it was, there were 3 that were like, they don't sound like everybody else. I mean, you can bash Marianne Williamson all you want, that she's a little wacky or whatever, but at least she's talking passionately and she's not like trying to say the perfect politically correct thing and toe the line. Same thing with Andrew Yang, and same thing with Tulsi Gabbard. And that's why they're so afraid of, someone like that, getting into power.
I mean, because they don't fall in line with the orthodox of the new left.
No, and, our government, sadly, was taken over a long time ago by the deep state infrastructure. And, the DNC, they don't want somebody. They see the poll numbers. They know Joe Biden is not a really strong candidate. They know that Kamala Harris has her problems. Cory Booker, they all have their problems. And I wouldn't say Williamson because she is a little wacky, but Yang, who's an entrepreneur, who's done a lot of entrepreneurial charity work and charity work and mentoring, who's made a lot of money, who talks very sensibly about what we're looking at for the future prospects of work, and we need to be proactive. And
vote for me, and everyone gets $1,000 in their bank account a month.
$1,200. I think.
$1,200 now.
I think it's $1,200. But you hear that right off the bat. You're like, oh wow, that's like a welfare thing. No, if you listen to why he's saying that, it actually makes perfect sense, and I agree with him, because the future is bleak with technology taking over industries. I mean, it's going to happen, folks. folks. Look what Amazon has done to bookstores, to retailers. They putting everybody out of business. You know, and then Tulsi Gabbard, she's talking the other thing that people really care about, which is anti-war, taking care of Americans first, getting America's house in order, and everything else, you know, we're not the world policeman. And these two messages resonate with people.
Right.
So you would think the people at the DNC would be smart enough to know, and they are, folks, they are smart enough to know, that these two people, probably out of our whole field of candidates, there are two strongest candidates. If we put either one of them forward and really put all our resources and energy behind them and really put out their message, not our message, their message, we actually might have a chance to give Trump a good race and beat him.
Right.
But these two people, Gabbard and Yang, they're not insiders. They're not Washington insiders. They're not deep state people. They're actual real folks that got elected based on the way they've lived their life, their integrity, and they don't want someone like that. So they're willing to lose to Trump to maintain their hierarchy. And I guarantee you one of the reasons that they're making such a big stink about this whole Trump inquiring into Biden is that Biden's not the only one, folks. You take the whole list of senators and Congress people, maybe even Supreme Court justices, anybody of any ranking level in the government, you take their list of kids, extended family, nieces, cousins, aunts, and uncles, and I guarantee you there's a ton of them that have been given cush jobs or been given opportunities because of who their parent or who their Congress relative or government relative is. Right. So if Biden gets called out and it's a big issue and he were actually to be like, you know, run from, you know, he's got to withdraw from the race or maybe there's criminal charges, guess what? Now there's scrutiny on the whole system because if Biden can go down, there isn't one of us that is safe if any of the same type of information comes out because you know how things go. It's always like a house of cards. You topple one important person, next thing you know, Susie down the street who knows the deal on Senator, so-and-so's wife, well, she's empowered to like call her local, newspaper reporter and be like, hey, see what happened to Biden? Well, guess what? Senator so-and-so, his daughter, is doing this and that. And next thing you know, people come out of the woodwork because they're looking for their 15 minutes of fame and feeling like they're part of the process now.
Right.
So the establishment almost has to protect this thing with Biden under any cost because there's a big house of cards that could come down because people have no idea the level of corruption and conflicts of interest inside of our government. And the same thing happens in state and local politics.
Right, but I think all power corrupts. It's nothing to be surprised about.
No, not at all.
It's just that, like I said, Trump stands less to gain by having power than those other people, than any of his political opponents do. Because for them, they have everything to gain by being elected. Trump actually has to compromise the quality of his happiness because he can't run around doing whatever he wants, and I don't know what that is. It probably involves sexual activity. I mean, we all know what he's about. I've read a lot of stuff about him. His number one motivator in life is his dick.
Yeah, and he's a guy.
Not all men.
No,
that is there for all men, but like most people have other things.
Of course, no. I mean, he's no better or worse, like I said, than any other powerful man that I've met. I've met some of the biggest executives in the world through past employment and through friendships. I've worked in the music business around some of the biggest performers in the world that everybody would know their names. I've dabbled into, fashion, same thing. I've been around people at very high levels in society. And folks, stop watching like Married with Children. Stop. I don't know what's on TV now. Game of Thrones.
not anymore.
Well, not anymore. But pull yourself away from the TV for 5 seconds and let Uncle John here give you a little insight. The world of powerful people are like Donald Trump. I'm sorry, folks. They
Right.
just are.
Most people, I think, I don't like to judge, but I think a lot of people don't understand that. Especially, even to pick on the right. Remember, everybody said, well, I don't know that much about George Bush, but he is the kind of guy I'd like to go for a beer with. How many times did you hear that?
Oh,
when
I heard
Bush
it all
was
the
president?
time. Yeah.
You know, and actually, I actually believe it, though, about Bush, but it's not the whole thing, and we've talked about this before, people imagining what it's like to know celebrities or people in power and formulating their own version of those people in their heads. Like, well, I hear Hugh Jackman's a great guy, you know, he's friends with his drivers, which, you know, I've heard a lot and I tend to believe it. But the point is, why do we care? We'll never meet him.
Yeah,
He's
that's
just
the thing.
this thing up there that we can think about, we can wonder about, but don't speculate on the nature of what
No.
it would be like to if they knew me.
And people
how
really
much they
do
would
have
love
a
me.
way of like manifesting some type of fantasy knowledge about somebody or
Right.
relationship. Like when they, you know, I always like to be at a like something like Comic-Con or someplace where celebrities are signing books or autographs, and you get like a couple minutes to talk to the person. And you see these people come up, and it's like they just met their hero. Like this person is some great like entity in the universe, all knowing, all funny.
And the guy's like, get a fucking life, dude.
Yeah, it's like, like it's weird sometimes. The dynamic's very weird.
Right.
So I mean, apropos with the name of our show, here's something, you know, folks, you need to put in your bowl and flush it. Is that famous people, political power people? They use the toilet just like you and me. You know, they eat food just like you and me. You know, they're people. They're not like amazing things. They're not, you know, people look up to people as role models. I love what Charles Barkley said one time. Charles Barkley, you know, the basketball player who's always had a reputation for being kind of a hothead.
I like him.
I love him.
He's
to death.
awesome.
I really like him. And people were getting into his ass about like, oh, you know, you say these bad words or you have these antics and, you know, you're a role model for kids. And he's like, time out, folks. I'm not your kid's role model. You're their parent. You're supposed to be their role model, not me. Why is it my responsibility? I have a job. It's to play basketball. Basketball is a business. I get paid to make points and to defend, and I make a lot of money doing it. That's my job. Just like you go to the factory, I go play basketball. Is a factory worker putting on tires at a Cadillac assembly plant, is that supposed to be someone's role model? I mean, give me a break, you know? So people get caught up in this fantasy, and they come up with all these scenarios. I would say probably 95% of people in America that hate Trump, I bet you 95% of these people, or maybe even higher, have never met him, have never had a conversation with him, have never bumped into him in an elevator, has never got a visual into what his real life is like now or before. So how can you really have an opinion on somebody unless you really, really know them? And that's not just Trump. Pick anybody, a famous baseball player or athlete, a famous musician or movie star. You know, your neighbor 19 houses down on your block that you've never met and whatever. You don't know anything about their life other than maybe they drive a red minivan because you see it parked in their driveway. Well, what do you know about their life? So you're going to be able to like make, you know, surefire analysis and come up with, you know, opinions on them. They have to be true. Well, what if like the neighbor four doors down said, oh, the guy with the red minivan, oh, he abuses animals, and you know he's a tax cheat, and you know, I hear he's a racist and all that. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, you're talking to your other neighbor across the street. Oh yeah, Mary, you know the guy down there, I think his name's Ted. Yeah, he's a racist, and he's this and he's that. And you never met the guy, you don't know that.
Right, and I think a good example would be Bill Cosby, how disappointed everyone was when they found out about him. It's terrible.
It's a very good example.
With regard to the collective anti-Trump ideology, Donna Brazile was talking this week, who I have mixed feelings towards because I didn't like how she helped Hillary Clinton cheat against Bernie Sanders in one of the debates
Right.
in 2016. She works for Fox News now, which I think is a good sign about Fox because they have all kinds of people on that network, unlike the others where it's nonstop quacking, not talking. Talking, you use your brain. Quacking is practice, habit that comes from your throat. And it's just ideology, predictability, and so on and so on. But Donna Brazile, she was saying she has problems with her fellow Democrats when she doesn't fall in line by saying Trump is a racist. Because she's like, no, like, why? There's no evidence that Donald Trump is a racist. As a matter of fact, we've mentioned it before here on the podcast.
Yes, we have.
The Florida Country Club thing.
Yeah.
Where he got together with all his friends, and on the signs in front, it would have said something to the tune of no Israelites, Jews, no Sodomites, gays, and no Africans, black people.
Yep.
And this went on up into the 80s. I mean, when people already had, your country already had a civil rights movement. And Trump stopped that. Moreover, Trump is from New York. Mm-hmm. He probably has met way more gay people than I have.
Yeah.
And I'm gay. And he's around Jewish people and New Yorkers. It's hard to imagine somebody having this rural, redneck, racist, homophobic ideology if you're from a place like New York. You wouldn't be able to do business and function.
No, the racism element that people have tried to raise about him it's laughable. I mean, come on, folks. New York City. I lived there for a while. If you've ever spent time in the city, you know. 1 out of every 4 people in New York City is Jewish. The Jewish people, they're very, very prominent business people. They own so many industries. They're so involved. They're involved in the art community and philanthropy, so many areas. And Trump has been with these people for decades involved. I mean, so if he was some type of anti-Semite or some type of racist, it would not fly because Jewish people don't play that. If you're racist and Jewish people pick up on that shit, even if it's not just towards Jews, but if it's towards African Americans or someone else, Jews will be the first to be like, let's barbecue and fry their ass. And I mean, so he was able to navigate New York City for so many years, and it wasn't until he's in the White House that all of a sudden he's some type of racist. And I've said on this show before, I mean, I had the, I don't know if you used the word opportunity, but I had dinner one evening with Omarosa, who used to be on his television show. And it was a very private dinner at a friend of mine's, like, private, business club. And it was off the cuff. It was relaxed. I mean, we were there 3-4 hours, having some drinks, having food, laughing, whatever. And I had a very candid talk with her, and she was very nice.
Right.
And she was like, there was nothing racist about Trump. I mean, she was very adamant about it.
Right.
And if anybody, I mean, she does a lot of running her mouth for her own personal benefit and marketing and whatnot. I mean, she's very savvy, business lady.
Very impressive.
Very impressive. I mean, I wasn't even aware of her background working in previous White House administrations and her college degrees. I mean, love her or hate her, Omarosa is one sharp lady.
Yeah, but I don't cross her because if you had her on your, I admire her, but at the same time, I'd be very afraid of her.
Oh, well, yeah, because
where she started in life, she's,
But she was very, very adamant that Donald Trump is a nice person, that he's not racist at all, that she's never seen anything racist about him. And
he's just not the type. I mean, people who are racism for me is somebody who's got this built-up delusion about other people, and I just don't see Trump being delusional about anybody but himself. I think he's a narcissist.
I agree.
I've known a lot of people who've worked for him, and they all say he's not an asshole. He doesn't, if you don't put him down, he won't put you down. He'll lift you up, actually. But he is very impressed.
Joe Rogan had Penn Jillette on his show recently. Yeah, and I love Penn. I mean, just such a good guy, right?
And his politics, for me, are absolutely in league. Like,
he's
fiscal conservative, but atheist and socially liberal.
Yeah, he's like a no BS guy. He's not left or right. He's just a normal guy with some opinions and views, and has a good heart and comes from a good place and wants things to be like just and moral and honest.
Have you ever seen him, like Penn and Teller do magic?
I've seen their show, but I've never seen them live.
Yeah, I've seen them live. They're pretty.
Oh, God.
It's pretty out there. But they're always explaining to you that it's a trick and that there's no such thing as magic.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway,
but he was on Joe Rogan's podcast recently, I think last week or two, and he talks about Trump because Joe asked him, what's Trump like or whatever. And he did say that. He didn't say racist or anything like that, but one thing he did say was that, well, the guy's very polite, he's very friendly, he's very accommodating, but at the same time, he's a little detached, and it's very, easy to see that there is a certain level of narcissism or being full of himself and whatnot, so he's got a very big ego, but, he's a fair guy, and nothing that he saw, would make him believe that he was some type of monster or anything like, the people that hate him have tried to portray since he got elected.
Exactly right. Yeah, there's just nothing scary about him. I wouldn't want to, I don't know. Curiosity would be the reason I'd want to shake the man's hand one day and have lunch with him and just hear from his mouth, his view on things. But I just don't see him as a racist or a bigot in any way. And remember, again, I'm repeating myself because I've said this before, the response to the shooting at the Orlando nightclub, the gay club, Omar Mateen, who on his own accord affiliated himself with ISIS. It was not an inside job. Like, ISIS did not order that.
Right.
But after he killed himself, after he was shot, and the statement that he was doing this in the name of ISIS came out, ISIS was like, oh, well, we didn't command him to do that, but he shot up a bunch of homosexuals. Great. Yeah, he's one of ours.
Right.
And Hillary Clinton's response was about gun control and not blaming all Muslims, which is legitimate. You shouldn't blame all Muslims. And a lot of Muslim friends, almost everybody nowadays has friends of a multitude of creeds and faiths. And we know that there are spectrums within those creeds. But she never brought up the connection between hardcore Islam and homophobia to the point of homicide.
Yeah.
Right? And Trump did. He said, I want to, vet people when they come in. Like, okay, you came from Turkey. Oh, the women, they don't wear anything over their hair. We asked them a few questions. What do you think of, what's your thoughts on the legitimacy of the state of Israel? What do you think about gay people? Ask them questions like that.
Yeah.
What do you think about women not covering themselves? And if they have really backward views on life, I'm sorry, but you probably would be better off somewhere in, like, where you're coming from. You're not going to like it here.
Yeah.
And we don't want more people like you coming here to change this, because that's how we do it here. If I want to experience life that way, I'll go and visit you at your place.
Yeah.
But why are you coming here if that's how you want to live? So he was talking about Islam and homophobia and how it needs to be addressed on from an immigration reform standpoint. And the whole GOP crowd clapped, and he even said, you know what? I'm happy to say that I'm the Republican that got the GOP to clap like that for something like this.
Yeah.
About, gay people being oppressed. Usually it's the Democrats who associate themselves with
they do.
protecting minorities, in this case
they
gays.
do, and that's what's...
But they didn't function here.
That's the irony about all this. And I mean, again, we're probably going to catch a lot of heat for people are going to be like, oh my God, they're Trump lovers. They're defending this monster.
No, we're not.
We're not defending Trump, guys. We're just trying to get to square one. Like, we're the referees, and we're just trying to put the ball on the 50-yard line. We're just, it does nobody a service if there's bullshit from one side or the other.
Right.
It's not that I want to defend Trump. I could give a fuck less, really. But we have to have an honest conversation. And just because you've been riled up and you're passionate, or you've listened to things that this man said, or worse, you've listened to the news tell you what the man has said,
right,
as opposed to actually hearing the full, unedited, conversations from this man, I just don't see it, and how that affects you personally when, that he's some type of racist destroying you. He's not empowering people to go out and do bad things. If some nut job is going to go do bad things, they're just going to go do bad things. They could make the same argument about Trump. They could make the same argument about Clinton. They could make the same argument about anybody. But it's not the case. So, we have to have a fair conversation about this stuff. And, it's not just us. We're like middle of the road guys. I mean, you're a Canadian. I'm an American. We have liberal views. We have more conservative views. We're like full blown entities with, minds that think and try to be honest and fair and have integrity. And you got far left people like Jimmy Dore, who Jimmy Dore is he's a progressive. He's probably borderline more socialist. He's like a Bernie Sanders guy. He's about as far to the left you can get without being a complete crazy whack job. And even he's been railing. He was probably the number one person railing against, this whole Russia investigation. Go watch YouTube. Go to the Jimmy Dore Show and search Russiagate or Russian investigation. And you will see Jimmy Dore, who hates Trump, who's completely left, saying, hey guys, the Trump thing, the Russiagate thing, it's a lie. Here's the evidence. And over the course of months, he's laid out piece after piece after piece of irrefutable evidence that the only person that colluded with Russia was Hillary Clinton. And this is a far-left Democrat pointing this out.
Yeah.
And again, I don't subscribe to all Jimmy's views. I think, I don't believe in socialism, as a whole, and I don't believe some of the things that he believes. So our political opinions aren't the same on everything. But I applaud him for at least having an honest conversation, again, that no Democrat wants to have, because Jimmy, but Clinton's on our team. Trump's the enemy. That's the other team. And Dore's like, no, fuck that.
Yeah, the thing with Dore is the difference between his honesty now and how he looked at when he was working at the Young Turks. I think if anybody wants a good case study on groupthink and peer pressure, look at an older TYT episode with Jimmy Dore in it and how he just agrees and goes along with everything that they say, because it is, they quack there too. They don't speak. They quack and they all nod their heads. Now he's saying more interesting things on his own show with nuance, which I think is much more credible when once in a while you're engaging in triangulation by agreeing with the enemy. Bill Clinton was an expert on that, by the way. But anyway.
I know, right? Well, it's just, when he was working for the Young Turks, I mean, obviously they're paying him a salary.
Right.
Obviously, Cenk Uygur and whoever
Anna Kasparian,
and his partners and the people that are paying the bills, I mean.
Bill Mankiewicz.
You got to listen to them. I mean, so Jimmy probably didn't have the leeway to say everything that he wanted to.
Right.
But again, I applaud him because, we're all going to disagree on things, folks. Nobody is going to agree 100% on every social issue, every issue when it comes to how people should live their daily lives, which is nobody else's business but the person living that life. But at least he's like trying to be honest. Like we gotta put the politics aside and all this slinging, all this hatred and all this, crazy stuff like on social media where you hide behind your computer and you just, oh, you're an idiot, fuck you, delete, block, whatever.
Right.
No, folks, come on. We need to flush all this shit down the toilet, and we got to have an honest conversation. And even if you hate somebody to the point that it's making you lose sleep at night, like if you hate Trump, if you want to be taken seriously and listened to, you at least got to be honest about, like, okay, I hate the fucking guy, but I like what he just did, with, the First Step Act. I like that. That's a good thing. Okay, he did a good thing. Oh, this thing he signed, that was a good thing.
Yeah.
I still hate the fucking guy.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that he facilitated people getting out of jail for bullshit crimes.
Right. He's not the president because we want to be friends with the guy. He's not, he's there to do a job for us.
Yeah.
If your toilet doesn't work and you need a plumber to have a big flush, no pun intended, it doesn't matter if the plumber is some douchebag slob, like, he's getting the job done.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's real politic. This isn't cult of personality, character worship, or in Trump's case, character assassination, which goes on all the time. We talked about it last week because you brought up the First Step Act. Mm-hmm. Kim Kardashian was on The View, and they were talking about everything to do with the First Step Act, except the words the First Step Act and the words Trump.
Sure. And
they should have given him credit for that, especially Whoopi Goldberg as somebody who claims to be, because let's face it, the First Step Act concerns African Americans getting out of jail.
Yeah.
Because of the disproportion at which African Americans are arrested more for the same crime that a white person would commit and get less time. Because Kim Kardashian, she facilitated the retrial of a lady who was in jail for selling a minuscule amount of pot. Like, I have 10 times more pot in the house right now than that lady sold. Mm-hmm. And but we are in Canada, so I'm allowed to have it. She got something like, I don't have the actual quote, but it was a significant period of time, like 20 years, for selling a couple grams of pot. And Kim Kardashian got her out of jail.
Yeah.
And it is true. It affects people of color. The Democrats aren't 100% wrong about that fact,
right?
In my opinion.
Right.
Because people will have a little bit more money, a little bit more prestige in more affluent white communities. Not that there aren't affluent black people who also are privileged and can get away with bullshit too.
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson. But there is a disproportional situation that the left is right in addressing. Mm-hmm. But it was Donald Trump who made the first step on the First Step Act.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though Obama did try it, but the opposition from the GOP made it difficult for him.
Yeah.
Trump has a lot of opposition too, and he did it anyway.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, and then again, that blows a big hole in that whole racism argument, right? Because, I mean, you can't deny, like when the First Step Back was signed, you can't deny some of the other, pro-African American legislation that's been signed since Trump has been in president. You've seen the video, if you've chose to look at it. You've seen the pictures of Donald Trump with 100, prominent black business people and leaders around him applauding what he's done.
And also people who benefited from this. They got out of jail.
Absolutely.
They're going to be able to go to work. Nobody's going to be able to discriminate them.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful thing, folks. Whether you hate him or not, that's a beautiful thing he did.
Yeah.
Obama didn't do that for his own people. So Clinton certainly didn't do that. Bush didn't do that. Mm-hmm. Friggin' it took Trump to do that.
Right.
So,
and he didn't ask for a whole lot of praise. Like, look at what a great virtuous man I am.
No,
for helping black people.
He didn't.
No virtue signaling.
And not only no virtue signaling. I mean, the black folks around him, they're the ones that were singing all his praises.
Right.
And if you go online. There's a plethora of people like us doing private podcasts or just venting on a daily basis or just talking about politics on their iPhone every day that completely support Donald Trump for a number of reasons. And, I mean, without getting too deep into it, I mean, people, you know, they always say, well, you know, like the problem in urban areas, right? Like, you know, all the problems seem to be with African Americans in urban areas, and who's been in charge of urban areas for the last 40 years? Democrats and Democrat policies, and there are activists like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, and they're preachers in the church community because that's part of the political machine. You know, you've had all these people for 40 some odd years, and people are still living in the same conditions. There has been absolutely no progress.
Right.
So again, hate Donald Trump all you want. I'm not saying he's your savior or you should vote for him or support him. I'm not saying that at all. But at some point, you got to have a retrospective, honest conversation where, okay, we keep voting the same way. We keep having the same people in leadership roles, being the stewards of our plight in our community, and they're not getting any results at all.
Right.
Why on earth? I'm not saying vote for a Republican. I'm not saying vote for Trump. But my God, if you've had a senator in your district for 30 years and your community is garbage and unsafe and poverty-stricken, why on earth would you vote for that person again? You're going to get the exact same thing. Pick an independent candidate. At least there's a chance, like they say in Dumb and Dumber, 1 in a million chance, right, that she'll go out with me. Did she say, well, she didn't say no, so there is a chance. At least you have a chance. Right. Because if you vote for the same person again, guess what? You're going to get the exact same thing.
Right.
Come on, folks.
Because for pretty much everyone right now in the political landscape, right and left, Trump is the only person who I can genuinely say power is more of a means and not an end.
Yeah.
He wants to do things with the power and not just give his kids jobs in the Ukraine or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he wanted to be president other than from maybe a narcissistic place,
totally.
right?
Oh, yeah. John, it's totally narcissism. It's not altruism at all. It will be about us.
Yeah.
Because he wants to do something for the world and he wants to close his eyes on this world when he dies, knowing that he did something for other people, but it's actually all about him.
Right.
Do you get me? It's not altruistic. It's more about his ego.
Yeah, there will be statues like Stalin had, like in front of Trump Tower or someplace like that. So yeah, it's coming from a place like that, but he certainly doesn't need the money.
Yeah.
And as grueling as the presidency is, and as close, I mean, you go into the bubble, you go into the Secret Service protection, you live in that the rest of your life. You get out of the White House, you still have 10 agents minimum assigned to you for the rest of your life for protection. So you have given up your ability to go to a party where there's, playmates or contestants from a pageant. You've given up your ability to philander or to do
Didn't stop Bill Clinton.
It didn't. No, well, he's a sexual predator of the utmost evil degree. But that's a whole nother conversation. But you know what I mean? So you have to look like, why on earth would somebody want to give up that? If I was a billionaire, unless things were just, like they are now, right? Like if I had the power to implement and fix the country for everybody, it would be wrong of me not to take that opportunity. If I really could affect change and my place on earth and my finances and everything could be used for good, as opposed to just buying an island in the Caribbean and being like, well, fuck everybody, I'm happy, I'm rich. But I don't know, man. It's strange times.
Yeah, very strange. I mean, he did give up this insane lifestyle. Howard Stern was talking about his helicopter, which is about the size of my house. and like it's the kind of helicopter where you can't hear, like you don't need headphones on or the earmuffs
you
when
can't
you're,
hear the noise.
Yes, it's a perfect gold toilet in there. I mean, you could live in that helicopter and go wherever you want in the world. But he gave all that up to be under relentless, continuous scrutiny.
Sure.
And all these different things. His motivation for being president is obviously not what
and that's
everybody else's is.
And again, that's why people, you got to stop and use your brain once in a while and think, because why would you subject yourself to that? I mean, maybe you could make the argument that before Trump really got into the thick of things with campaigning, that he didn't realize or the full capacity of what it meant to run. Like he didn't realize, okay, people hate me, I'm Donald Trump, people love me, but he couldn't fathom the degree to which he would be attacked, not even on a daily basis, like on an hourly basis.
Relentless, it's continuous, non-stop.
For his whole existence, because even after he gets out of the White House, whether he loses this time or he gets a second term, when he's out, these people aren't going to ever let his, persona rest. It's always going to be, look, oh, that was Trump's fault, or Trump was the racist we had in the White House, or it's never going to go away. So at some
the dark
point,
ages, they'll refer to it.
Right. So at some point when he was on the campaign trail before he won, he had to have a moment where he was like, what the fuck am I doing? I got a good life. I don't need all this bullshit. Yeah, I kind of had an idea that I wanted to leave a legacy, or I really could help people because, I really don't like the fact that China fucks us up the ass, and I really don't like the fact that this is going on, and, but if he had some motivations that weren't like somewhat just or whatever, I think he would have been like, fuck this, I don't need this shit. Okay, I'll go down, or I'll back away, or I'll come up with some cockamamie story. Maybe I got a health issue, something. He could have backed out, or he could have campaigned less to the point where it was such a close race. He probably could have thrown it and lost, but he didn't.
Right.
So there's got to be a reason behind it.
Well, I don't want to speculate on his motivations or anything like that. Again, I think that there is an element of narcissism there. He wants to be praised. He needs that. He needs to be admired, not loved, but admired by people.
Sure.
And he wants to die knowing that he was president of the United States and basically did everything amazing that a person could potentially accomplish in their life. He's like, man, there hasn't anything that I haven't been able to do, including be president of the United States.
That's true.
And head of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Yeah, it is very strange what's going on in America right now, because the way they twist the media, even on today when we were watching CNN and Fox News and all the different news networks, they're all scrambling. They're all with their papers, and they're all like, well, no, Trump said this, and Rudy Giuliani said that, and they're all trying to get their facts straight in a way that they won't contradict something that they've said before that'll be like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they would just report it if they had nothing to hide.
Oh, right.
And that goes for both networks, by the way.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
No,
it's definitely both sides. I mean, it's, I don't know. There's still part of me that thinks it's all one big stage show, all one big act. Like, we've referred to a bunch of times on this show, what the infinite wisdom of Mr. George Carlin said, it's one great big club, folks, and you and I ain't in it.
Right, exactly.
And there's so much truth to that statement. And I think people they don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe it. There's an era, and I forget who it was I was watching one time on a YouTube show or a video or something, where someone spoke about this pretty good. Oh, you know who it was? I think it was Governor Jesse Ventura, where he said, the thing is that there's this certain psychology, if you're patriotic, if you've grown up in America, especially if you're an older person, because you grew up during World War II, or you grew up during Vietnam, or an era where American patriotism was this great thing, and that we all bond together as Americans. And when information would come out about secret government programs where they were, testing on humans, or they were coming up with nefarious weapons, or where they were doing false flag operations, to get us into wars.
Like the Gulf of Tonkin.
There's an element to those people that they can't, like my grandmother, for instance, if she was still alive. My grandmother was a very patriotic woman. Oh my God, 4th of July, Memorial Day Parade, Labor Day Parade, apple pie in America and Chevrolet and that whole thing. And there is no way, even with physical evidence in front of her, would she ever be able to let herself believe that her government, Uncle Sam,
Right.
the red, white, and blue flag, could be doing bad, criminal, evil, nefarious things either to Americans here or in other places around the world. So when they would hear stuff, even if there was facts to back it up that this really is true, your government really did this, it really, sprayed chemicals over people in places like St. Louis, it really tested psychotropic drugs on human beings, it's
What's that about St. Louis?
St. Louis, there was a government program to where they sprayed certain things in the atmosphere to see how the people would react. It was in the 60s, I believe.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's all documented.
Were the people who were responsible for it held?
Oh, are you kidding me? It's the government.
Okay, so that's what I mean. You're explaining it as it's de facto, but
It's de facto in that you have people, like I said, like people that are patriotic or love their country, or everyday people that just live their lives, that they don't have these evil thoughts in their brain.
Mm-hmm.
They don't conceptualize stuff. So it's such a foreign concept for them to swallow that they just, get out of here. Conspiracy theory, or they blow it off. They don't see it. And then you have, another group of people that it's might be true, but it's well, I'm just John. What can I do about it? This is a big macro giant issue, and I'm just this micro little fish in this huge enormous pond. Even if I say anything about it, I can't have an effect on this, so I can't even put this in my brain to think about.
Right.
So you have all these things going on, and this whole psychology behind it, that it really, really makes it incredibly easy. Not just easy, but incredibly easy, that if the government or some force of the government wants to do nefarious things and carry them out, or collude on a story like this to remove a sitting president that might be detrimental to the deep state, as an infrastructure, that it's really, really easy to bullshit people because people don't want to believe the truth in the first place.
Right.
Kennedy talked about this. Kennedy was going to dismantle the CIA. Kennedy ends up dead. His brother Bobby was going to carry on, was gaining ground. He gets shot. He gets killed.
So why hasn't the so-called deep state assassinated Trump yet? Why is he still alive?
Well,
if what you're saying is true.
I've thought about that. I actually thought about that driving here today. I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, I do think at some point, if he continues into his next term, that may be something on the table. It really may, because they certainly don't want to swallow the fact that they lost to this guy twice and there's no way they could get him. If he truly is being 100% genuine in all of his efforts, which you and I will never know, if he really is some type of threat to the deep state, to the intelligence community and its infrastructure, I think maybe they will take him out. But why haven't they, or why don't they? I don't know. Number one, it could all be collusion. He could be all part of the big thing. This could be a team effort, folks. And there's other things going on in the world right now that we're distracted to because of all this political garbage in the air that, Zach and I are trying to flush away for you. But I don't know. It's a big clusterfuck. It's a big mystery, and And I don't know. I mean, if he's really, plus there's more scrutiny now. I mean, you have the internet. You didn't have the internet and phones and cameras and recording devices and everything back in the 60s when Kennedy, both the Kennedy brothers were assassinated. Today, I mean, I was just about to say, to be able to assassinate a sitting president, I mean, you would really have to be pretty skilled to do that, because especially now with all the cameras and everything. Like, you better have your ducks in a row, because it's too easy to get caught nowadays. Someone will come forward, technology will out you. But in the same instance, they were able to kill or get rid of Jeffrey Epstein in a maximum security prison with guards. Oh God, well, they murdered him. Get out of here.
Right.
He didn't kill himself.
I mean, it would just have been too juicy what he had to say.
I mean, I was reading an article that his brother's been scared shitless that, they could, off his brother, because his brother knows everything. His brother got gifts and benefits from the same guy that gave Epstein his $1 million houses for apparently no reason other than, here you go, Jeff, we like you, buddy. How about a $10 million house in New York City?
Right.
Or a private island, here you go.
Right.
So, I don't know. They can get to anybody. I mean, if they wanted to whack Trump, they could whack him.
Right. That's why I wonder they haven't done that yet, this deep, mysterious state.
I don't know. There's a lot of reports that at least the Secret Service guys and the law enforcement guys around him that protect him love the shit out of him. They think he's great. He's a big friend to firemen, to policemen, to the Secret Service and all those guys. He takes
Secret Service?
Yeah, the Secret Service, members that protect him.
Oh, right. Yeah. So on an interpersonal level, everybody's happy to...
They love the guy. Law enforcement people love the guy.
Right. And I heard that the Secret Service they had their fingers crossed during the election, because I guess Hillary Clinton isn't...
Oh, she's a bitch, man.
Like they say the language they use, the condescension with which they talk to the staff is awful.
She's a bitch, man. There's a couple books out on that. I read a book called American Evita, and there was 2 or 3 state police officers in Arkansas that used to be like bodyguards.
Right.
And they go incessantly, in great detail about what she would say and the way she would treat them and how horrible she was. And there's been other people that worked on, the White House staff when, the Clintons were in office that say the same thing, that she's just like a horrible, rotten witch of a human being.
Right. Well, she was also recorded on tape. Again, nobody promoted this in the media the way they did with Trump's creepy video. She went to a fundraising town, somewhere in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And everyone was very happy and excited to see her. And when she found out that none of them had been prompted to bring a donation for her, so nobody had a check written, she was like, all right, well, I just came here to see you. She had a whole speech prepared.
Oh, okay.
Then she went back into the limousine, and she is heard saying, there's no fucking money here among these yokels.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just like how there's a lot of stuff about Stalin, and not to compare her to Stalin, but there's a lot of things written about him that he had no sympathy for the working class people, and he's, the biggest communist pro-worker leader in the world, and he was referring to people as riffraff.
Yeah, well,
because it's not.
At that level of power, I mean, we're saying Trump is a narcissist, which he's clearly a narcissist, but Clinton's just as much of a narcissist. I think you really need to have some element of narcissism in your soul to want to aspire to that level and do that job. I mean, even as a congressperson or senator, I mean, nowadays, the way the whole atmosphere in politics is, I mean, you got to be out of your mind to want to do that, even if you want to do good. I mean, everybody in their life and their background has got something in their closet, whether it be some type of drunk driving, a speeding ticket, you got in a fight with your neighbor one time and said a slur, or, you had a little side business and you didn't pay taxes or claim it. I mean, everybody's got something in their background, and if the establishment digs long enough and deep enough. I mean, shit, they really only have to hit their friends up at Google and be like, hey, you know, what's in this person's search history? Oh, they went to freaking pussydriller.com or S&M whips and chains, or, you know, little boys, you know, this and that, or they're, I mean,
BDS,
whatever it is, man, you know, oh, they downloaded a picture of the Confederate flag one time, you know, 22 years ago, you know, when the internet first started. They can get and dig up anything on anyone. I mean, I know me personally, I mean, I don't have a criminal record or anything like that, but I'm sure there's something they could find on me, you know.
Right.
There's somebody that's going to stand up and say in third grade I called, you know, little Susie, you know, a fatso, or I'm like, yeah, but what they don't know is she called me, you know, a fatso first, so I just called her a fatso back.
Yeah, now
we're in third grade.
Now you're reminding me of the Kavanaugh thing.
Well, and it just came out that the lady was lying about the whole thing.
So what's the new evidence?
The new evidence,
Because I think most of us were suspect of that. But what is it that just happened that
there were people that actually know her, that were there at school with her, that know her personally, that said that she told them she didn't remember anything about that, and that the reason she did all that is because she was pressured into saying what she said, that it was all, she was pressured into it. And
it's on record that she admitted to being approached?
It's on record, and it's on record that she lied about it. It's all on record. I mean, and it's been in the news,
right?
And there was a big controversy this past
Sorry,
week
John,
or so.
not to cut you off, but so we all understand, why has she not been apprehended for perjury?
Well, come on, man. She was fighting for her team. When you fight for your team and you get caught doing things for the team just basically sends you to Siberia for a while.
Right, but to a work camp. But no, why isn't she, anybody who's not on her team, calling for...
the same reason I said earlier that they're throwing themselves around about this Trump thing, right? The real reason, I believe, that they have to go after Trump for this is because if they out Biden... Forget the fact that he's a Democrat. He's a politician. If they out Biden for doing like unscrupulous things or having conflicts of interest, like having your son get a cush job in a foreign country for a foreign government, you know, then everybody's in jeopardy because everybody on both sides does it. Why don't they come out after her? Probably because the Republicans do the same shit. There's probably plenty of things Republicans do, just like the Democrats, where they're using, you know, suspect testimony or hearsay, or they're having a lobbyist pay somebody or goad somebody into confessions or testimony.
Right, like show trials.
Yeah, so it's a system. So, okay, yeah, on this side, they fucked up this time, but if we really go after them hard, it'll fuck it up for everybody. Why do you think they didn't go after Hillary Clinton? And this is one thing where Trump can kiss my ass on, because during the election cycle when he was debating her...
I'll have you arrested.
I'll have you arrested. I'm going after you. We're going to see what crooked Hillary was doing. And then I think it was right after he won the election, like hours later, after he knew he won and he got the phone call from Hillary conceding, reporters started asking him, so, Mr. Trump, now that you've been elected president, are you really going to go after Hillary Clinton and put her in jail for, you know, the alleged crimes and abuses that she's done? And he looked and he's like, well, you know, I really don't want to harm the Clinton family. They've served the country for so many years, and, you know, I've known them, and they're a good family, and there's no benefit to trying to harm Hillary Clinton now, and so this and that, and it's like...
That was an election gimmick on his part.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
A very effective one.
Right, but okay, now let's criticize the people who support Trump. Why aren't they outraged that he hasn't... Forget about having her arrested or charged with anything. Yeah. Why hasn't he laid out a clear, point-by-point, easy-to-digest manifesto of what would make her eligible for conviction?
Well, you know, right after he said that, and his first part in office, first 100 days or 200 days or whatever, there were a lot of Trump supporters that were pissed off, that were screaming bloody murder, like, hey, dude, you said you were going to go after Clinton. What the fuck?
Right.
What's the deal? I mean, and then as the whole scandal and server scandal and this kept in the news cycle, people were really pissed off about it. But again, you know, why don't we go after Hillary Clinton? Because, you know, Trump's got to play in the arena now, and they're all doing it. They're all corrupt. The majority of them are corrupt, either on a small scale or a grand scale. So the reason they don't go after these people is not that they can't prove the crime. In Hillary's case, I think it would be very easy to prove the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, and she probably should be in jail and could be in jail.
For what? If you could narrow it down to, say, 3 charges.
Colluding with foreign governments.
Okay, which we know about because of the email.
Yes. Enriching yourself through a charity foundation and then funneling the money to yourself personally. And
Which charity foundation?
the Clinton Foundation.
Right.
And then also shaking down government, saying, hey, you want this policy, you pay this much. You know, you want this. So corruption. I mean, these things, if they really did, like if the FBI was 100% unbiased and did a like real police investigation in her, there's no doubt in my mind she would be convicted for serious things. But neither side has any interest in going after people like that, because that brings scrutiny to the whole
enterprise.
system.
Yeah.
So they have to give her a pass. They have to, because all of them have the same type of dirty laundry in their basket. So, I mean, they can't. And that's why.
Yeah, they also didn't, the Democrats also didn't even challenge her on, like we mentioned a little earlier, the situation with Donna Brazil and basically cheating Bernie Sanders out of the last DNC campaign against Trump.
No, they didn't.
And there's a lot of Bernie supporters and people who are like that don't like Clinton. Like on the Young Turks, for example, I think they would have preferred to have Bernie Sanders as the front runner for the Democrats over Hillary, because even there, like Jimmy Dore, even there at the Young Turks, they're critical of Hillary Clinton.
But the Bernie Sanders supporters, they did throw themselves around. They were pissed. And they were told to sit down and shut the fuck up. And then it was explained to them, you know, by their DNC and their more, you know, middle of the road people that, look, guys, again, it's our team. We're a team here.
Right.
Yeah, you didn't get what you want, and you didn't get what your guy, you know, the guy you wanted, but this is the best for our causes. This is the best plate for everybody. So you don't want the evil guy with the orange hair. So just, I'm sorry, but you just got to swallow this pill this time.
Right.
And next time we'll right the wrong, because baby steps, this is a movement. We can't take giant steps. We got to do baby steps. It's a long-term thing. So you got to be on board with the long-term plan. So, you know, yeah, we fucked your guy over, but you got to vote for us anyway, because what's the alternative? Voting independent, you throw your vote away. You can't vote for the orange orangutan, you know, racist, homophobe, bigot, you know, Trump, billionaire. So the only option, you got to vote for who we tell you. You got to vote for the Democratic team guy. You just got to.
Toe the line.
Yeah.
The end justifies the means. The rewards will...
And some of those Bernie supporters swallowed it and went along, and some of them said, fuck you. Yeah. And now those people are in the audience of the Jimmy Dore show. I mean, really.
Jimmy Dore, Joe Rogan's another one who's not a typical conservative. I mean, the guy talks about all of his psychedelic drug experiences.
Oh, he's not a conservative at all.
You know, but still, he's my favorite podcast, other than The Big Flush, is Joe's, because he talks about almost everything, and I like his position.
Yeah.
He interviews everyone, and he doesn't give anyone a hard time, but he says certain things that are not in line with what you hear if you only watch mainstream screens, so to speak,
well,
like non-podcast, non-internet, on sort of network television, like CNN,
and
Fox,
I mean, I give,
MSNBC.
you know, I I give him the same accolades that I do like Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is a little, more left and, a little more animated than Joe. But Joe approaches everybody from just like, we're having an honest conversation. That's what this is about. So if you start saying things that aren't true, I'm going to ask you about it, because just because I'm a ring announcer and I got some tattoos and I'm a bald and I'm a comedian, I'm not a dummy. I'm actually quite intelligent and smart. So that's the standard. The standard on these shows and these formats are long form, honest, in integrity, ridden conversations. And that's why they're so popular, because people don't get that when they turn on the TV. They don't get it when they go through their social media feeds like Twitter and Facebook. The only place they're getting it is on YouTube and programs like that.
Right.
And people are like, wow, finally somebody that just talks to me straight. And when somebody tries to be a wiggle worm and get out of something, they call them out on it. And it's in a format where they can't run and hide.
Right.
When you're having a 2-hour conversation and you're only 20 minutes into the conversation, where are you going to hide? When you're on CNN or a Fox show or something, you know it's a 4-minute segment. So it's almost like you're in a boxing ring. And even though you're getting your ass kicked because the fighter's better, all you got to do is make it to the end of the round. They ring the bell and then you're safe.
Right.
So people like that, they can't survive in that type of arena. So some people don't go into the arena.
Right, exactly. And AOC is probably the worst culprit for that, for not going on. She doesn't go on anything. I've only really seen her on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper, who I'm sure he's going to give her a hard ball. Not. That was actually the first time I heard of her. And because I think that the left media, I sound like a Karl Rove right now, the left-wing media. Never thought 5 years ago that I would ever see things that way. But it's just awful.
It is awful. I mean, I swear to God, man, that if I was a Democratic strategist, I would go back to basic things. Honest and integrity. Nobody is allowed to give even one more canned political answer to anything. You either have to have ideas and vision, and you have to clearly articulate them, or articulate them even on a dumbed down level. If you're talking to a group of people that aren't the brightest tools in the shed, then talk to them in a manner where they're going to understand what you're saying.
Right.
You don't talk above people, you don't belittle people, and you listen to people's concerns. And then you put out a message that's going to resonate with a majority of people, not a small or minority of people that think exactly the way you do. If you want to get elected and you want to, be able to be in power and accomplish your objectives, then you have to appeal to a mass amount of people. You can't just be closed-minded.
Exactly.
And then when you do get into office, there's the other thing. It's probably the biggest gripe I have with people like AOC or Kamala Harris or from Rashida Tlaib, from my district here in Michigan, is that you are elected by a group of people, okay? They're your constituents. You are beholden to them, no one else. So when you go into Washington or whatever else, you're supposed to represent them collectively.
Right.
You don't get elected and then go, guess what? I think this way about this. I'm right, and this is how I'm going to handle myself in Washington based on my ideology. Fuck my constituents. 50% of the people or 70% of the people disagree with me on this issue, but you know what? You're stupid, you're bigoted, you're wrong. I'm doing what I think is right.
Right.
And it's like, fuck my constituents.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see how that works for you on election day.
Yeah. Well, for any political process, I think that's real honesty. Hardcore honesty is really hard to come by anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you're supposed to represent people. You're not supposed to go into elected office with, okay, our side won, this is my ideology, our side's ideology. You can't just leave half of everybody else behind with your ideology, because we all live together, folks. You don't get to make the rules for everybody.
Right.
It's got to be a middle. You got to have common middle ground.
Right. Right. Well, one of the things I find with the left is they got to abandon identity politics and the glorification of, not just the glorification of minorities, but encouraging people to see themselves as a minority rather than a person or an American or a citizen.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, you know what he thinks of gay people. Oh, you know what, he's a racist. He doesn't like black people. Black people need to unite. There's a rise in white supremacy in the country. All of this rhetoric that comes from the left is damning, because what about, like, Asian people who don't like black people?
Yeah.
So only white people are racist? You know, and so you're basically vilifying the vast majority of the country. At the moment, you know, it's not always going to be that way, and I'm not against, you know, the ethnic dynamic changing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
no, and I mean, it just going to like the left-right paradox, or the bullshit in politics that, you know, the big flush is committed to flushing away. You know, we got to keep plugging that big flush thing, guys. So
the big flush.
You're going to hear it about 20 times a show. So I'm just taking you out on a safe island ahead of time and telling you, so don't get on to, you know, we got to hook you with our tagline here. But I was watching a C-SPAN congressional hearing last night, actually, in the wee hours of the night. And it was the congressman from Florida, I believe, who was drilling Al Sharpton about previous racist statements he's made over the course of time.
Right.
And he had actual transcripts of making disparaging racist comments about Jewish people and about white people, using the word cracker, talking about them Jews, you know, put on your yarmulke and come on over here and this and that. And he was reading verbatim all these racist comments,
Right.
you know, Al Sharpton has made over the course of time.
Right.
And, you know, I was sitting there watching, and I'm like, well, again, I'm not surprised. I know Al Sharpton. Like, this is not some big news to me that he said these things or whatever. But I got to thinking, if you or I or somebody conservative or just a normal person or some athlete that's not like pro-left or whatever said even one of these comments that Al Sharpton has made, you know, over the course of time, they would have been vilified and labeled as a racist and run out of existence. I mean, they did that to Paula Deen. Paula Deen was a big homemaker, had cooking shows.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
She said something.
She admitted, like, she was having a conversation with somebody, and she said something along the lines that, yeah, back in the South where I grew up when I was a kid, when I was much younger, you know, we'd use the N-word sometimes, you know, if we made a joke or, you know, someone in the family, you know, it's just sometimes the N-word, you know, I heard it as a kid, and, you know, I've said it before, and, you know, and she's talking, you know, when she was, like, basically a kid, a teenager in her early 20s. This is like a 60-something-year-old woman now,
Right.
that's touched, you know, millions of people across all ethnic diversities with her homemaking programs and her recipes and all that. And she basically lost her show.
Right.
She lost everything. I mean, I think she's back on the air now, but she lost everything and was like banished from all media.
Right.
For like almost a decade.
And she wasn't saying that it's okay.
She wasn't saying that it was okay.
She was saying that was what it was like. And
Exactly.
It was wrong.
Exactly. It's exactly what she was saying. This is the way it was in the South when I grew up.
Right.
I was a part of it just like all my friends were and this and that. And yeah, it's wrong. And, you know, and they would not let it go. But then you have someone like Al Sharpton. Again, he's on our team, folks. He's a very powerful, you know, liberal, Democrat, left,
Yeah.
African American, you know, personality that can be used strategically to take people down, that can be used strategically, because he's very skilled at what he does. But yet he's able to make all these anti-Jewish comments and call white people crackers, and has a long history of when he's out in his rallies and he's running his mouth and speaking in front of people.
Yeah.
Sometimes he makes like the things that Farrakhan say look like, again, G-rated material.
Right.
But all these years, this guy has gotten a pass. And here he's given congressional testimony, and this white congressman is asking him question. Did you say this? Did you say these words, Mr. Sharpton, on such and such a date at such and such? And not only is Sharpton like getting the opportunity to explain, well, what I really meant was, or the situation that happened that got me fired up to say this, or I don't recall saying this. And as this congressman is trying to question him, Democratic congresspeople on the panel are invoking something called parliamentary inquiry. I want to make basically what they were doing is they were running in interference, trying to get the guy's time to expire.
Right.
By doing a parliamentary inquiry, saying, basically what they're saying is it okay in the rules of this body to allow somebody to disparage the character of somebody else? And the chairman of the committee, which is that older guy with the black hair and the glasses, he looks like he reminds me of Gopher from The Love Boat, but like a older version of him. I mean, I know I'm old, I'm dating myself. But he kept having to take the inquiries, and then he have to keep pushing back, saying, in the rules say that, a congressperson, questioning a witness has a lot of leeway and can establish this, and unfortunately, I have to yield time to the gentleman. You can continue your questioning. And it was all black congresspeople on this panel, this committee, rather.
Right.
And they kept, like, every time he'd ask a question, they kept interrupting and basically saying that what you're doing is you're badgering a witness that we asked to come here and testify.
Right.
They didn't want Sharpton to have to answer these questions about things that he said, which he didn't even deny he said them.
Right.
And in some cases, he even explained, like in the Jewish comments, some of the Jewish comments, he was explaining the context of how he meant them and the situation that happened that caused him to get mad and say these things. So he's not even denying that he said these racist things.
Yeah.
But yet, how come he's not run out? How come he's not, banished from society?
Because there's no such thing as non-white racists.
Okay, so, all right, so you can...
It's impossible to be racist to white people because white people are the majority. But
okay, but what? So you can say racist things about white people. You can call them crackers. But what about Jewish people? You're allowed as a person of color to say anti-Semitic and Jewish things?
Right, and that's what is going on now with the big, the squad. I almost said the big four, but the squad. Omar got denied entrance into Israel because her remarks were interpreted as being anti-Semitic. And I think that they technically were. I think it's actually quite widespread on the left. If you go to, university nowadays, ask any undergrad who's taking a European history course, they'll be like, yeah, it's terrible what Hitler did to the Jews, but fuck Israel.
Right.
Like, do you realize that Israel is a result of that and that the Jewish people need a home? I mean, I know where you are on the Israeli lobby in Washington, and I'm basically with you there too. But when it comes to Israel or Palestine, excuse me, I'm with Israel. And I'm not for any of those atrocities that they're committing, but that's war, and overall, I think that their way of life is more in tune with ours than the Palestinians is. And anybody who is gay or a feminist, a woman, should see it that way too, and I don't know why If you don't, I don't understand why.
Well, good luck to you or anybody else if you say the same things that Al Sharpton said about
Right.
Jewish people. Good luck to you.
Right.
But Sharpton gets a free pass. And I just think, again, it's hypocrisy. If you're an asset on our team, which Sharpton is clearly an asset for the Democrats, he has been for years. If you're an asset on our team, doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what you do. We got to protect you because, God forbid, it's like playing chess. Once all our pawns are gone, we can't get a queen if we need one when we get to the other side of the board.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, just this double standards and garbage and bullshit.
And doublethink.
And doublethink, and there's no consistent standard. It's
Right.
like they're all hypocrites. They're all hypocrites. One side can't be able to do whatever they want and then get mad when the other side does the same thing, and vice versa.
Right. But they always will.
Well,
The constant finger pointing. But that's what we're here for, John.
that is what we're here for. We're here to enlighten, to entertain, maybe even to get your blood pressure up. I mean,
And to flush all the bullshit, vomit, feces, urine down the toilet.
all that good
Regardless
stuff.
of what color it is. If it stinks and it has no use, the big flush is here to make it go away.
Yes, definitely.
All right, John, it's been good talking to you today.
Yes, it's been
And
great.
we'll keep everyone posted on this whistleblower phenomenon. Let's see how the world reacts.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on it, and we look forward to flushing the bowl again real soon.
And on that note,
Take care, folks.